I just found out that my stalker, Nathan, passed away yesterday. It feels strange to say this, but I'm relieved. He was 34 years old, the same age as me, and this is a story I've carried for years. It's full of pain, fear, and moments I'm still trying to process. For anyone reading, consider this a trigger warning. Stalking, suicide, sexual assault, and death are woven into what I'm about to share. Nathan and I dated briefly in high school, a few months that turned into a nightmare. Even as a teenager, he was violent and volatile. His father wasn't much better, an abusive man with a sick sense of humor. I remember one time his dad drove a massive truck through a protected beach, laughing like it was all a game. Another time, he casually showed me a cabinet full of guns and pointed a loaded shotgun at me. Then there was the night Nathan and his brother beat each other bloody in their living room until their dad intervened by knocking them both out. It didn't take long for me to realize that I had to get out, and fast. Soon after, Nathan was diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder. I want to make this clear. His illness did not make him violent. He was already that way, but the disorder seemed to amplify his darker impulses. He dropped out of school and retreated into a world of cigarettes, alcohol, and isolation, holed up in his room with nothing but his computer. And for some reason, I became his obsession. The messages started pouring in, hundreds a day. They were aggressive, graphic, and increasingly sexual. When I changed my phone number, he found me on Facebook. His words were disturbing, violent fantasies about how he wanted to hurt me. He even contacted my family and friends, spreading vile lies and threats, telling anyone who'd listen that he would kill anyone I dated. His posts about me showed up on random forums, my full name attached to the kind of horrifying things no one should ever have to read about themselves. It was relentless, like I was trapped in a nightmare I couldn't escape. Nathan once attempted suicide by overdosing on pills when we were 18, but his mother found him in time. That moment could have been a turning point, but instead, he swung from violent threats to obsessive religious messages. He had some sort of come to Jesus moment, but it didn't change anything. If anything, it made things worse. Between the threats, the racism, and the Bible verses, I blocked over 200 of his accounts, and still, the messages came. The moment that finally pushed me to go to the police was when Nathan showed up at my parents' house, looking for me. I had moved away for college, but he didn't know that. He brought along a guy we later learned had a gun and a criminal record. My mom was alone, terrified. We went to the police, hoping they'd take it seriously. Instead, a female officer looked at me and said, "It takes two to tango." I was speechless. Years passed. Nathan didn't show up in person again, but the messages never stopped. Vile, threatening, soul-crushing messages. He spent his life sitting at his computer, playing World of Warcraft, and harassing me. I eventually filed for a restraining order. A judge finally listened and granted it, but even then, Nathan kept breaking it. A few nights in jail here and there didn't stop him. After 15 years of this, I realized that as long as Nathan was alive, I'd never be free. 2 years ago, things escalated again. Nathan started threatening to hurt his niece and my family. That was the final straw. With a new judge and fresh charges, he was prosecuted for felony stalking. He spent a year in prison, and for the first time in a long time, I felt safe. That year was a gift. I didn't wake up to threats or fear for my life. He was released 6 months ago. I held my breath, waiting for the messages to start again. But instead, about 2 weeks ago, Nathan reached out to my best friend, telling her he was dying of cancer. At first, we didn't believe him, but it was true. Stage 4 stomach cancer. He didn't last long. He died yesterday. I want to feel pity for him. He grew up in an abusive home and lived with an untreated mental illness. Part of me thinks I should feel something more complicated, something softer. But I don't. When I heard the news, I cried tears of joy. I felt free for the first time in years. I don't have to be afraid anymore. His niece doesn't have to suffer. No one else has to be hurt by him. My stalker is dead, and I'm happy. Happy he's gone. Happy that this part of my life is finally over.